I think a lot about the Mathew principle. I'm probably thinking about it a couple times a week on any given week. And the Mathew principle is just this particular use case for the Pareto distribution. Pareto distribution is the function that says that the square root of the inputs is responsible for all outputs. And a lot of people like to look at that as an economic law, but the reality is that it maps pretty much anything that you can loosely define as creative. The square root of all musicians end up making half the music or more. The square root of all musicians also end up getting half the fan base or more. The square root of all musicians also getting half of all the money or more. The majority, so 51% or more basically. So it's true for musicians, it's also true for artists, it's also true for businesses. Square root of all the business in the world end up getting the majority of all the revenue in the world, the majority of all the business in the world. But it's also true for things that have nothing to do with humans at all. The square root of all of the stars in the galaxy is responsible for half the mass in the galaxy. And then also for things that we just don't consciously think about. City population. Square root of all the cities have half of the population. So what does it mean what does it mean to be the square root? Well, it means that if there are 100 cities, then 10 of them have 50% of the population or more. If there are 10,000 cities, then 100 of them have 50% of all the population or more. And this is where we get at the top, you just see this mass overwhelm because square root of the square root function is pretty violent function in that regard. So the Mathew principle is a very particular use case. The Mathew principle is specifically, it comes from a passage out of Matthew in the Bible where Christ says, "To he who has, more will be given. To he who has not, even what he has will be taken from him." And it seems to be that Christ is not saying how things ought to be as much as he's just saying how things are, because the Mathew principle is a use case for the Pareto distribution, which appears everywhere. So let's localize this. When Mathew principle, what is the specific use case? Well, it's an economic principle. And what it basically says is it's applying the Pareto distribution to personal income. And to he who has, more will be given. To he who has not, even what he has will be taken from him. As in, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Here's what we know about it. Here's why I think about it all the time. Basically, what we know is that people kind of stack up at the bottom, and not just in capitalism, but in every economic system. We have absolutely no idea how to overcome this. And so basically what we're saying is it's easier to get from 1 to 2 than it is to get from 0 to 1. Or easier to get from making $15 an hour to making $30 an hour than it is to get from not having a job to making $15 an hour. Let me give just one very practical example of this in society today. And I know we have a lot of institutions that make this more applicable, easier to overcome, but just hear it for the point of the analogy. If you were homeless and you had no physical address, you would not be able to get a job because the applications require you to put your address. You can apply. And that's a big problem. And that, like I said, we have social structures in place that allow workarounds around this, so it's not quite that difficult, but it is still relatively difficult to get a minimum wage job if you're currently homeless. And it's much easier to get a better paying job if you currently have a job. Another way, and this is why I think about it a lot, the way that I contextualize it is what the Mathew principle really is a statement about momentum. And basically it's saying wins stack up and losses stack up. When you're winning, it's easier to keep winning than it is to lose. And when you're losing, it's easier to keep losing than it is to win. Wins stack up, so do losses. It's a statement of momentum, which is why I'm thinking about it constantly, because when I'm winning, I want to keep winning. And so what I want to keep doing is keep everything the same, effectively. knowing that anytime you try something new, there's a very, very high risk of it ruining everything you have. And I've done that multiple times in my career, because sometimes it's necessary anyway, because growth might still require it. But when you're winning, you just want to keep the momentum going. But here's when I think about it. I think about the Mathew principle a lot when I'm not winning. When I've gone 3 weeks without a sale. When I've lost clients. When the revenue's down. That's when I start thinking about the Mathew principle. And I start thinking, losses stack up. When you're losing, it's easier to lose more. So what do you do about it? Well, one is you recognize it. You recognize that losses, when they start stacking up, they're putting you in this negative tailspin. And there's a lot of reasons for it, and we don't fully understand it, but one that I've experienced is just psychology. Just when you're winning, you have a mindset that makes it easier to keep winning because you're excited, and excitement is something that transmits to others very easily. People, when you're excited and passionate, it's easier for the people around you to be excited and passionate, which makes it easier for prospects to say, yeah, I want to work with this guy. And all of that helps. And then when you're losing, I lost 2 clients. I had a prospective client fall through right when they were supposed to start paying, and I lost revenue while going on a 3-week stint of not getting any new customers. Very, very stressful time, very, very hard time. And even though I didn't predict losing customers, that I did not predict, but I did know that it was going to be a hard transition season. And that's what I talked to you guys about in my last video. If you haven't watched it, check it out. But even though I saw it coming, even though I knew that there were going to be some losses coming, in the sense of I'm not going to get the new clients quickly because I'm making a huge transition, I still think of that as that's still dangerous psychologically. There's still this pattern that's potentially threatening. And so it's good to be prepared for the Mathew principle. And I think one of the secrets, and I want to share with you, one of the secrets to winning in business is having backup plans. And I mean this in a very particular use case. Having things in your back pocket that you know you can count on that are wins. And maybe financially, but more psychologically. So let me give you a couple examples. I'm in a negative spiral. And I'm thinking, oh no, everything's going wrong. What do I do? How do I pull myself out of this negative spiral? And the first thought I have is there is a methodology that I can employ that makes it almost impossible that I don't win. And win as in get sales, because that's momentum I need right now. I'll reach out to past customers who I have good, long-standing relationships with, people who like me on a personal level, and people who've worked with me, who've given me money before. And I will offer them the best service that I can offer at the highest discount that I can offer. And that way, it's almost a forced win. If I go, hey, person who already knows, likes, and trusts me is already giving me money and that already has worked well for them, and we're still in good relationship, we still have a maintained friendship, we still get lunch together when we see each other, stuff like that. I'm doing this new service that would be perfect for you. Here's everything that makes it perfect for your business and you need it. And because we're friends, I'm gonna give it to you at the best possible discount that I can. Well, as long as I'm right about that middle piece, it's a yes. Right? And that's an easy way to force a win. And I became convinced last week that it's these kinds of forced wins that the more of them you have in your back pocket, the harder it's going to be to lose, because then where my trajectory right now is that I have to see losses stack up for a couple of weeks before I'm willing to pull out one of those cards, because I don't have very many. And I know how valuable they are psychologically. But imagine if I had enough tools in my toolkit, enough cards in my back pocket, to where every single time I went a day without getting a customer, I could, or every single time I lost a client or anything like that, I could pull out one of those cards and I could force a win. Well, then that means I'd never have a day where I didn't win. And can you imagine how quickly your business is going to explode if you can make sure that you don't ever go a day without a win, where wins are defined as new clients, increase lifetime value of existing clients, sales. That happens every single day. It's really, really hard to not hit whatever goals you have in business. So I just wanted to share that with you. And so the homework would be sit down and figure out how many forced wins can I put in my back pocket that I can spare until I need them. Because the reason that I didn't reach out to these prospects until I needed it was multifaceted. One is to make sure I can get a win when I need it. Two is because I'm probably gonna have to give them a discount. The nature of the segment that I'm speaking to right now, I'm probably gonna have to give them a discount so that they can work with me. So it's not as high profit margin, so it is like last resort kind of thing. And three, nothing in my existing marketing channels is gonna reach them. So I have to actually be thinking outside the box to consider them. And then that's what I do. And the more of those forced wins you can have in your back pocket. By the way, I went through like 6 last week. I just did everything that I could. Like that's one of them is the past client strategy. Another one is like close friends in similar spaces and making referral networks. Another one is asking existing clients for referrals. Like I went through so many things. And what happened was I got 2 new sales last week, and that was enough to switch momentum. So that's what I have for you guys today. I'll be back in your buds again very soon.